So what you've hopefully done up to now is watched the first few videos in this course, and those are just time-lapse videos just showing the process for creating the main character. And throughout those videos you'll have seen certain tools and techniques being highlighted that are new to Maya or that have been improved upon in Maya 2015. What you will have also seen in that video is this model here being brought in and added into the scene. Now this is just a very simplified and stylized model of a brain. It's not supposed to be realistic or anything like that. Like I say, it's just going to be simple and stylized. Now to create something like this, you could use curves and then extrude other curves along the splines to create these sorts of shapes. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to keep this whole character polygon based, so we could use subdivision surfaces, and then that means that later on it's a lot easier for us to then UV and texture and paint the textures in into those polygons. Now if I select it and press 1, we can see this is a low resolution model. Press 3 and that's nicely smoothed. Needs a little bit more work, a bit of tidying up, but you get the general idea. So what we're going to do now is just go through the process for creating this brain. Now like I say, I wanted to keep it polygon based, so as you can imagine, building in these polygons here or creating a cube and extruding it can be quite a lengthy job. So instead what we're going to do is we are going to use the quad draw tool, this one here. Now this has been improved in Maya 2015 and it's excellent for retopology, but in this instance it's really good for getting a base for our brain. So I'm just going to create a new scene, and we're just going to, where's the grid? There we go. I'm just going to create a polygon cube to start us off. I'm going to select an edge, then double click, and that will select the edge loop, and I'm going to go connect components. I'm going to make sure insert edge flow is disabled. If it's enabled, we click apply. And then if this had been curved, let me just do this. Now symmetry is on. Let's just select that again. Click apply. We scale that down. Now you'll have seen this at the beginning of the time lapse, creating the holes for the eyes. If we turn off with edge flow, click apply, the actual flow of these edges isn't affected. If we add edge flow, click apply, as you can see it's rounded this off very nicely for us here. Now it's a bit of a redundant point at this stage, but I just thought I'd go over that sort of improvement just in this video. Like I say, in the previous time-lapse video it was used quite a lot but not really explained, and it will be explained in the article that accompanies this too. But anyway, we're getting distracted, so I've split this into two, and I'm going to turn off symmetry. So I'm pressing Control and Shift, symmetry, turning that off because I just want half the cube. Select these edges, hold down Shift, connect components, and there we've got edge flow on. So I'm just going to turn that off. Press Control and Space just so it can work in full screen, just using the marking menus. Press 3, and we're just going to make this into a rough brain sort of shape. Now this is just going to be half the brain. Like I said, we're just after a rough shape, because what we're going to do is we're going to build on top of this. This is going to be sort of the template that we're going to add our curves on top of. So just something like that will do. Now that's quite low resolution, so what we can do now is just go to modify, convert smooth mesh preview to polygons, and that will bake in the subdivisions from the subdivision surface. So now we've got a basic mesh to start working on top of. I'm just going to press 3 again just to smooth that out a little bit. So now we can start using our quad draw tool to start adding in our edge loops and our polygon strips, which are going to dictate sort of the main masses of the of this stylized brain. But before we do, we need to make this object live so that the polygons will stick to it. And all we need to do that is go up to the menu up here, click the magnet, and the selected object is now live. And you'll see I can't select it, but what I will be able to do is draw on top of it. So we'll make this full screen again. I'm just going to hold down Shift, go down to Quad Draw Tool like so, and you'll see we have this pointer. So now what we can do is click, 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 click. So we have 4 points there, and they're essentially where the vertices are. Now if we hold down Shift, you'll see as I move over it, there's a green square there. If I click, that's made that into a quad. So I can create 2 more points, hold down Shift, create another quad. And we don't need to just do it on each one in turn. We could come round like this and just add our points in, like so. And then go over with Shift held down. And you see there, you can decide how you want your polygons to flow, depending on where you place them. So as you can see there, we've got the polygons strips added in, and they're following the surface of this model. And as you can imagine, if you'd sculpted a high detailed model, brought it into Maya, you could easily use this to create a nicer, cleaner, low resolution version. Now if I hold down Shift, as you know, it will create new quads in between, but if I hover over a point, you'll see we can relax. And if I just start painting like so, it's going to relax these points over the surface, so it's just going to smooth those out a little bit more. If I click with the middle mouse button instead of the left mouse button, so I'm holding down Shift, clicking with the left mouse button will smooth it like so on each paint stroke. If I hold down the middle mouse button over this edge, as you can see, if I move up and down, that sort of relaxes it in certain defined steps. So that's another way of using that relax tool. So that's one way to quickly build a strip of polygons. So let's delete that. Now that can be, if you can imagine, if you're clicking and adding in all those points, that can be quite labour intensive. So let's try and look at a different way. If I now hold down Tab, as you can see, we have a quad which is following where I'm moving the mouse. If I hold down the middle mouse button, we can scale the size of that quad. But what we can do is use that, and as we paint, if we hold it down, as you can see, we can start to define our first areas of the brain. So we can hold down Shift again, come up to the top here, and then start to paint this area up here, because that's what it's like really. You're just coming in and you're just painting. Now these are just stretched here because obviously it's being projected from the point of view of the camera. But we can now come in, and as you can see, it's automatically hovering over each element, each component, sorry. So we can move these vertices and they'll automatically snap and weld to the ones that you leave them over. Move that to there, but now we've got this issue where it's crossing over. What we can do is, if we press Control and Shift, you'll see it's now highlighted in yellow, and this allows us to delete components instead. So we could delete this face here, move this point to there, move that point to there, and just start tidying this up. Or just come in, use the relax tool, smooth this out, get rid of that where that's bent over there. Just move these, and as you can see, it's just very easy to weld certain components to others. It's just moving around, use the relax tool to smooth areas out. Now here, what we ideally want is this to match up here. And another tool is if you hold down Control, as you can see we've got a green line, and this will just create a cut, and then that cut will stick to the surface of the model. So as you can see, it sort of pulled the mesh out because it's trying to align itself to the live surface. What we can also do is create an edge loop this way. And you can go in and create as many as you like so, and it's that easy. So what we need to do now is start thinking about cleaning some of this up. So let's just work around some of this. What I would ideally want is this edge here to align to another edge further up, because we want this to flow around nicely. Bring this down here. In this instance, we can just hold down Control, add in another edge there. Like so. Or we could just leave it. If we decide we don't want it, easily just snap it together like so. Move this point down here, this one aligns to here, and so on, and so on. And obviously you could move faces as well, and edges, rather than just vertices. But then we can use the tab key again. So rather than just creating polygon strips, we can extend edges. So if we wanted to quickly just weld these edges here, hold down Tab, extend, and that's welded. Hold down Tab, extend, and that's welded. And now we have a hole here, so we could extend it, or we could hold down Shift, just like when we were creating points. And as you can see, it's now trying to fill in any holes that it can fit a polygon in. So we could add one in here. Just tidy this up here, just clean it up a little. So hold down Tab, and we can extend this point to here. Just make sure those are welded, yep. And as you can see, we don't need to extend and end on a point. See, that will automatically snap, but we could just extend to there. If we don't want it, hold down Control and Shift and delete that there. So as you can see, you can very quickly get nice flows of polygons, which are going to help to start us off with dictating the main chunky areas of our brain. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue to work around the head. I'll pause the video for now, but I'll come back in a second using the magic of video, and the head will be all polygoned up, and then we'll see what we're going to do next. So as you can see, I've gone around the rest of the head and just added in those extra polygons, just trying to excuse me, just trying to follow edge flows which will help to dictate those main chunky areas of our brain. And if we wanted to at this point, we could delete that mesh underneath because we don't need that anymore. So what we can do now is, we've got a number of options really. We could use the multi-cut tool. If we hold down Control, as you can see, we can go around these defined edge loops and start cutting in extra edges, and then we can pull those out, which will form the chunks. If you hold down Control and Shift, you see the edge cut, the multi-cut tool will snap to certain points along those edges as well, so you can get more precise cuts. What we're going to do though instead is we are just going to select the faces. So in this instance, just click, double click. Up here we'll do the same, double click, so we've got that edge flow around there. See if there's any more where they're not connected. Maybe this one. Nope. Okay, what I'll do is I will just do these two for now, and we're just going to use extrude face. Now if the thickness is too high, we can go back into our channel box, extrude face, and adjust our thickness in here. So maybe 0.025. That's about right. Let's press 3 just to see how that's looking. As you can see, we're starting to define those main chunky areas there. So now we can go in and we can select like that. So we don't want that one, that one. As you can see, just when we've been creating our main edge loops, we've obviously had to add in other edges just to fill out the space. So it's not an issue. That's accidentally been extruded there, but it doesn't really matter. So let's just see there. Extrude face again. But this time we'll just go down to thickness in here. 0.025. That's it. Just make sure they're all the same thickness. And again, we'll go around here. Press G to repeat. 0.025, and so on and so on. We'll just go around, and there's one there. Another one here. G. 0.025. So there we're now starting to get those masses in there. And now we've got those, we can then go in and think, well, these edges in here, we don't really need them, so we can just go collapse edge. Don't forget to also delete by type history, just to keep your model clean. Most of the crashes in Maya, I find, happen when you don't clean your history on a regular basis. Delete that edge in there. And now it becomes more a case of pulling the geometry around. You know, we want these edges here to come together a bit more. You know, just so we're getting those sort of bulging masses. And just make some judgment calls on certain areas. So this area here, we could collapse it all, make this a bit thicker. Like so. I mean, we know we're going to be removing these edges here, so let's just follow those round to here. And obviously we don't want lots of triangles leaving in the model. Now I'm just doing this very quickly, but hopefully you get the general idea. Yeah, a lot of this needs a bit more cleaning up. a bit more tidying up. But what we can do now is, once you're a bit more happier with the with that area there, we can always go in and create the opposite side. Now I'm not going to use the mirror cut or anything like that. I'm just going to go and use the traditional route, because I want full control over what gets welded in between here. So just going to combine, and now we can go in and bridge those edges, because we want a gap leaving in the middle. Press G, see, a double click will select those edge loops like so, but we don't want the ones around the bottom. So if I press G, there we go, that's bridged those areas there. We could keep that in so it's separated, but I'm going to collapse those edges, modify, center pivot, just make sure, hold down X just to make sure that this is right on the middle of the axis. Then I'm going to press Control Shift, and with my right mouse button I'm going to activate Symmetry again. Let's just freeze the transforms. There we go. As you can see, the blue dots mean that it's working symmetrically. And you can also now work with, if this side of the brain was using the same topology but was slightly different, you can also now go into Symmetry and work off topology. So if I select an edge which is going to be the middle of the model, hold Control Shift, right mouse button, Symmetry, topology. Now it's going to work as you would expect in here, because this has just been mirrored, but that will work off the topology then. So if this side is different to this side but it's got the same topology, the mirror options will still work. So that's something that's also been improved. So now you can go around the brain and just start tweaking all these areas, collapsing edges, adding lots of little tweaks, and even adding more detail if you want to. But the plan is to get this base model, which is polygon based, we can then UV it, and then we can paint in lots of veins and details and lots of all the little gruesome bits and bobs later on if we want to. So let's just add a new shader just so this looks a bit better. We'll add a blend. I'm going to make sure viewport 2.0 is enabled. Turn on ambient occlusion, and we could turn on anti-aliasing as well, just so it looks a bit nicer in the viewport. So let's delete by type history. So we want sort of a pinky brain colour. Add a bit of an ambient colour to it. Like so. And we could make it look a bit wetter. So I'll just load in the final brain again, and we'll just have a look at that one. So here we go again. So now you can see this was what we started off, and this was the aim of it, and now you can hopefully see exactly how we've approached this and how we've achieved this sort of simplified brain model. Just using the quad draw tool that allowed us to dictate these edge loops here and the flow of these faces, which then allowed us to extrude those and create these chunky sort of stylized brain masses here. And as you saw in the time-lapse video, this was then brought in and added to our character. So that's this section of the tutorial covered. So before we move on, I just wanted to quickly demonstrate a more obvious use for the quad draw tool, and that's for retopology. So I'm just going to quickly load in another file. So as you can see, we've moved on a bit from the previous videos. We've actually started adding in his clothing, building in some boots, a belt, his basic top here, and also some straps which are holding his brain in place, but some of those have come loose and his scalp has flipped open. And this is where the quad draw tool comes in useful again, obviously for retopology. Now if we look at this item of clothing here, you can see this is quite dense, and that's because it's been created in an external application. It could have been sculpted in ZBrush or Mudbox, or even created in an application like Marvelous Designer, which is good for clothing, and then brought into Maya, as we can see here. Like I say, the issue is it's quite a densely populated mesh, and this is nothing new. People have been working with retopology for many years now. But as we saw with the brain, we could do the same with this model now, just making it a little bit easier to work with, and then we can create the various maps, a displacement map or a normal map, whatever maps we need from the high resolution geometry, and bake that onto the low resolution. So all we need to do, again, we just right click, make that live, and then we go down to our quad draw tool. And we can hold down tab, and we can start to dictate polygon strips like so, or we can just go in and create our points like this. Just like that, and just work over the whole model, and then you'll get your nicely quadded shirt. So if I just delete that, if I hide this, make him naked again, and bring back this other model. Now this is one that I've worked on previously. If I just switch to a different viewport for now, just so we're not looking through it. But as you can see, this is a much cleaner, much lighter model, and that's just created using the quad draw tool. Now you could always use Z-Remesher, that's an option, or you could work with much larger quads and then use the smooth tool in Maya just to add in those extra divisions. The approach is entirely up to you. All I'm showing you at this stage is just the improvements in the quad draw tool and just how easy it is to use for, you know, instances like this where you have to retopologize a high density mesh. Now the beauty, again, if I switch to viewport 2.0, zoom out a little bit. Now we have our lower resolution model, but what we can also do now in Maya 2015, if I open up the attribute editor, now if we enable smooth mesh, we know that that's going to turn it into a subdivision surface model. If we press 3, that will just switch that on, and we can also do that here. But now we're using the Open Subdiv libraries, we can scroll down to the Open Subdiv controls here, and if you've previously baked out a displacement map, you can just check this box here. Now it's a bit rough and basic at the moment, but as you can see, it's starting to, we get a hint at the creases that were on the high resolution model because the model is being displaced. If we turn this on and off, particularly up at the back here where we've got this ridge here, you can see where it's just giving you a rough idea of how the displacement is working on that particular model. So that's just another nice enhancement with Maya 2015. So let's just go back to our high-res model just so we can see him. So I think that's about it for this tutorial. Like I said previously, this wasn't a step-by-step, this is how you model this character tutorial. If you want to see that, just follow the time-lapse video and you'll see each part in detail. This is more an introduction to Maya 2015's modelling improvements, and in particular with this video, the Quad Draw tool, which is quite nice to work with now with those enhancements. So I'm going to leave this course here. I hope you've enjoyed watching it and learned from it. If you have, please drop by my website or my Facebook page or on Twitter and let me know. And I will see you in part 2 when we're going to start looking at texturing him.